Okay, welcome back. Stress and Burnout 101 per Science, Lesson 3. So, this one, we're going to go into the actual functioning of what your brain does through all of this. Some of you may know on the therapy side, I specialize in trauma. This is my wheelhouse. I love this stuff. I love understanding it. I love knowing how the body responds to it because that's where all the secrets lie and how to get people through the trauma stuff and push back on the stress. So it plays a lot in what we're doing today with the burnout and stuff like that. With that, I can talk about this for hours and hours and days. So I'm going to kind of read the slides on this one a little bit just to be respectful of your time. The slides are well put together. It has all the information that you need, so I'll stick to them well. If you want to have deeper conversations on this, feel free to reach out. Okay, so stress, chronic stress, long-term stress, um, anything that your body does, any action that your body does, any chemical process that your body does on repeat, your brain rewires to learn to do it more. Um, we're going to use it in part if you work with me one on one, and like the EEGs and the neurofeedback is all about those patterns and that repetition and pushing back and retraining it into the proper, better, healthier ways. But right now we're looking at kind of how this has happened throughout your past with typically that just the constant demand and drive inside of your work, whether it's self-driven, external, usually a combination of both. But what's it really, really doing inside your body and brain? Um, it tends to cause, through stuff we talked about before, those thoughts of like, I used to be able to handle this. I used to be able to do more than this. Why can't I do it? Your body's wearing down. I should be able to think more clearly. As we've talked about, a lot of this stuff messes with your ability to think. Again, it's biology. It's not that you're not able to think. It's not that you're not as smart. It's not that you're falling apart. It's just that your body is stressed and it's not working the way that it should. Um, Again, I'm just not trying hard enough. Everybody tries as hard as they can, but if your tools and your systems that you're leaning on aren't supporting you the way that you should, your effort is never going to feel the way that it should. Um, on the biology side, we're looking at four major areas that kind of get affected by all this: memory, focus, mood, and that threat detection are all getting tapped into. And the threat detection, again, is those nervous systems that we were talking about. So the four parts inside of your brain that get messed with all this stuff. Your amygdala is the threat detection or kind of your emotional control center. Again, it's that little nub right at the top of your spinal cord, all the way in the core base part of old brain. It's the reptilian brain that you may have heard of, that people talk about at some point. Prefrontal cortex. It's the big mushy part in the front where your forehead is. It's the part that's the most developed in humans. It's what basically sets us apart from the rest of the world. It's responsible for executive functioning, so big decision stuff, planning, impulse control, and working memory. Basically, if you have to do a math problem in your head, that's your working memory. Your anterior cingulate monitors the conflict. It's kind of a self-checker, and it helps with your attention and being able to kind of control that. It's kind of the big picture, kind of a second observer to the system. And then your hippocampus helps with memory consolidation. It's active a lot when you're asleep, when you're kind of putting long-term, the day's stuff into long-term memory. And again, it's that HP axis that we talked about before. It's, is this scary? And we're going to go to fight or flight and use your nervous system to react fast. Or is this not scary? And we're going to leave your prefrontal cortex on that has the executive functioning, the deep thought, the planning, and all the problem solving stuff. And you might see that if the hippocampus is like, oop, danger, fight or flight, your prefrontal cortex does not get involved. You instantly are at a deficit to try to make well thought out decisions. And it actually gets more complicated than even that, which is also not so helpful. But you can see where, a lot of the effects that you might be feeling are coming in through just your natural body's response. It's not you. So diving into this a little bit deeper. So your amygdala normally scans for threat and emotional kind of consistency. It acts super fast. Again, it's that quick snap decision. Is this good, bad, good, bad, good, bad, good, bad? Um, and then it is what triggers or kind of assigns emotions. It is basically kind of your judger. You know, this happened. Are we sad? Did this happen? Are we happy? Or and it's slapping that emotional label on all those decisions when it comes through super fast. Under chronic stress, eventually it becomes hypersensitive. You get super reactive to everything. There's no like, this isn't that big a deal. It's like everything has to get an extreme label. Um, it also stays on longer and it has a tendency to trigger more stuff to the threat response. Um, and then with that, it starts labeling more things than it should that, normally shouldn't really get emotional response, but now all of a sudden it's turned on, it won't turn off, it's labeling everything. Everything is getting some kind of an emotional label on it. So your prefrontal cortex, again, squishy part up in your forehead. It does plans, goals, again, working memory, kind of that, math in your head stuff. It inhibits impulses. So things like, maybe gambling or drinking or some other stuff that, a few of us probably haven't, you know, managed as well as we'd like. Again, the option to be able to deal with that kind of stuff and squish it and walk away from it physically is being removed from you. That part of your brain is getting turned off. Um, and this is key, and we'll get into this later, is this is the part of your brain that tells the amygdala, the emotional part we were just talking about, that it can calm down and it doesn't have to slap emotional responses to everything, or it can unlabel emotional responses. Um, so you can see, again, if these aren't talking right, where this can start getting messy. So under chronic stress, um, the dendritic reactions, or pardon me, retraction, basically the nerves in your brain operates on a bunch of like little hairs and fingers that stick out that all kind of connect and talk, and that's the neural net inside of your brain. The dendrites are those like little fingers that are reaching out to touch each other. With chronic stress, those start getting burnout and retracting, and the function and efficiency of your brain, your thoughts, all that stuff literally start to get reduced. Um, as you can imagine, your working memory goes down, your neurons, your brain function is physically being shrunk. Decisions, everything inside of your prefrontal cortex, the quality goes down. So your ACC, normally it tags conflicts between goals, inputs, and actions. So, if you've got goal A and goal B and you're like, uh-oh, like this one thing happened and it's going to mess with this, but I need it for this. It lets you see those kind of things so you can start working through it. Um, it helps you decide what, to figure out, okay, so we have to tend to this. This is the priority. This has to get done today, those kind of things. And it helps with the emotional and motivation regulation assigned behind the attention and tasks. Oh, pardon me. So if this is engaged too long, it starts getting messy. Its decision process starts breaking down. It overfires. It constantly turns on. And that's where the rumination and the cyclic thoughts of like, this is going to happen and then this is going to happen and then I'm going to lose my house and this is going to happen and then I'm going to get fired and then I'm going to end up on the street, and you go take a drink of water and take a deep breath and 2 seconds later you're thinking the same process again. This is why. This thing's kicked on the hard drive. It's telling you to attend and worry about all the things and it's not calming down. And then all of a sudden your motivation and your attention kind of break apart because your attention is over here spinning on nothing, and then your motivation to do any of that stuff just falls apart because you're just overwhelmed and you can't stop thinking about stuff. So your hippocampus, again, kind of the what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of the control switch, the operator switch from the old days. It helps move short-term experiences into long-term memory. So it's what helps filter when you're asleep, when you're dreaming, stuff that happened in the day, kind of filing away into long-term memory. It helps organize those stuff and helps you kind of build patterns and schemas. This happened. This should be related to the stuff that happened when I was 20. This is kind of what helps make those choices. And again, with us, the big one is it lets the HP axis calm down. This is what turns it on or turns it off. If it's under stress all the time, cortisol builds up and it actually starts breaking down physically your hippocampus and starts shrinking. Again, measurable volume loss, unmanaged stress, like they can do, fMRIs and those kind of, PET scans and stuff like that, and they can physically see the mass of this part of your brain shrinking with chronic stress. Um, and then again, that stress loop just starts kind of going because it's not turning the things off. Okay, so how does this kind of work over time? So if the amygdala is turned on all the time, it's faster firing, the filter is shrunk, it's reacting to everything, and it's reacting louder. All of a sudden, everything's a threat, everything is scary, everything is a big deal. Um, and with this, at the same time, because again, we said everything is a push-pull, and these two work together. So if the amygdala is up and firing all the time, your ability for your prefrontal cortex to operate and kind of calm it down turns down. So now all of a sudden you're hypervigilant to everything, you're reacting to stuff, and your ability to process and logic through it is being reduced at the same time. So you're getting, two effects that are increasing basically the results and the symptoms of what you're feeling at the same time. So the good thing is, there is good news in all this, I swear. It's not damage. Again, it's the plasticity. It's what that means is, I don't know, if you're old like me, they used to say that like once one of your brain cells died, it was just dead forever, and you were just one short for the rest of your life. Good luck. It's not true. Doesn't actually happen. You continue to grow brain cells and new connections to the day that you die. You can be growing brain cells on your deathbed. But you have to do things to make them grow. They don't do it so much just on their own. It's a response. They're reacting to things. They're reacting to you doing stuff. So, and this is where the EEG process that, there will be a class on that very soon. If it's not there as I'm recording this, but it'll be up pretty quick. And it's a thing that we can do. It's a service that I provide. If you're interested in it, reach out. But this is what it's based off of, is it's helping you regrow those neurons and retrain how they connect and the patterns that they run in. For this, your hippocampus, again, it's rebuilding stuff. The mass is coming back. Your prefrontal cortex, those fingers that we talked about that are kind of shrinking, they get reactivated and they start growing back out. And then your amygdala, it starts calming back down and getting more regulated. It's getting more practice. It's getting more volume of safe information. And it starts learning its proper thresholds again. So the good thing is burnout is a learned response to the world. Countering burnout is also a learned response, which is what we're doing. It's why we're here. It's what I do. So a little bit more details on what this kind of means is, again, kind of thinking your way out of this. Willpower is just the mindset to push through it, do better, try harder. Not going to work. Hopefully at this point you're starting to see how that's probably just going to facilitate and keep the problem. It just makes the burnout worse. It's not that you shouldn't ever try harder. It's not that you shouldn't ever push, but there has to be a time and a place. There's a time to push. There's a time to rest. There's a time to willpower through stuff, but you have to be able to stop. Again, I'm not trying to tell you life is going to be amazing. Everything's going to be perfect. You're never going to be stressed. Unicorns, chocolate, and butterflies for all forever. That's not what this is. That's not realistic. What we're working on is something happens. You need to be able to push. Cool. Awesome. Let's do you and make you the best you that we can. However, we also need you to be able to stop and rest and let your system re-regulate so that you have that choice. Because basically what burnout is you've lost that choice. Your body's just pushing all the time, and it's now just kind of physically stuck in that state because it's hasn't had the practice to turn back off. And then, yeah, you can read here some of the more details of what's kind of going on. This reviews a lot of the stuff that we went on. Okay, so that's the end for this one. That was your brain. And then we're going to start looking at kind of what's happening throughout the rest of your body. Because as you can imagine, we're starting to talk about emotions, some of the chemical processes, a little bit of the hormones and stuff like that. It doesn't all just live in your head. So we're going to start looking at how it goes and moves into the rest of your body also. So I hope this was helpful. This is one of my favorite topics. I love knowing how the brain works with all this stuff. Again, because if we understand it and we see what's happening, it allows us to find solutions and target the right stuff to do better.